Okay, so good evening, everyone. Oh dear. Is it that kind of crowd, is it? So good evening, everyone. So much better. So my name is Dawn Edge. I'm an academic at the University of Manchester, and I'm the university's academic lead for equality, diversity and inclusion. And it's my privilege to be with you again this year. We were here more than last year, is it a year and a bit?
15 months.
15 months, to be precise. Just to really to remind you about why we came together 15 months ago and what we've been doing since, and also then to talk about not just our future plans, but really importantly, to keep that conversation going about what it is that you would want from us. How can we work together for the best results for the community? So just for those who've got short memories and for those who weren't here last time, just to remind you that the Black Lawyers Matter, Project? Yes, program, came into being because, and Graham can say a little bit more about this, that the realisation of the underrepresentation of black, particularly Caribbean young men on the law degree at the University of Manchester. And really wanting to do something about that, because it wasn't just that they were underrepresented, we were underrepresented, but also a particular group. So we had very few people from what we call widening participation background. So people who are from neighbourhoods where traditionally few people go to university, people whose parents might be on low incomes or their parents might not have gone to university, because we know that those people are less likely to go to university than others. And it was worrying that when we looked at the data, those are the kind of people who were not getting places on the law degree. So the movement began, and we came and we had some conversations. Those of you who've seen it on YouTube know that it got a bit heated towards the end, but we can cope with that. And it's fine, because people were quite rightly angry, and they were saying, the university is only up the road. If we really wanted to know what was happening, we could have found out a long time ago. And in any case, we keep coming and asking questions, but we don't seem to do very much with it. So this is our attempt to come back to you to say that we are listening, and actually there are lots and lots of other things happening at the university, some of which you can see on display over there, and some of the initiatives that we've set up and other things that we support. So, as I've said, some of the things that people said last time is that we don't give anything back as a university. Researchers come into the community, we gather information, or we ask people questions, we take it back, and it disappears, and people in the community have no idea what happens to it. And people were saying things like, it felt as though the university was kind of an exclusive club, in that people found it difficult to know how to access the resources that we were saying, well, we've got all these things that the university is doing in the community, but people didn't know about them or understand how to access them. People who were here last time were talking about the need for the university to invest in capacity building. So it wasn't just an issue about money, but actually being present and working with people in the community, and understanding that the university had as much to learn from the community as the other way around. And so, we wanted to be much more equal partners in the work that we were doing. Intriguingly, some people didn't seem to realise that there was more than one university in Manchester. I'm sure most of you will know, or if not all of you will know, that there used to be Manchester Polytechnic, which many years ago became the Manchester Metropolitan University, or ManMet, or MMU, as well as what used to be the Victoria University of Manchester, or Manchester University for short. But so that was intriguing, that some people didn't know that, and that says something about how little of what we think is self-evident we're actually conveying to people, and what a different kind of dialogue we needed to have. Okay. Another thing that people were really concerned about was the tendency to stereotype groups of people, particularly it was felt African Caribbean men and young men, and we wanted to talk about the diverse range of experiences and aspirations within groups. So that was an important feature of what people were saying. And that came out of people also saying that it was important that when we were thinking about success, and when we were thinking about some of the reasons why people don't come onto the law degree, and why we know from the university data that Black, Asian and ethnic minority students who access the university are more likely to drop out in their first year. And we're saying, well, we need to look at why that might be and what we can do to get people in, because getting somebody on the degree is one thing. Ensuring that they complete, and they complete with a good degree, that means that they can have a successful career, is another thing, and we need to be working all the way along. It wasn't just enough to get people through the door. We had to do something about that. And that led people to talk about, people here who'd been to, not just to Manchester, but a range of universities, to talk about how the atmosphere, the environment within universities can be quite brutalizing for Black, Asian, and other minority groups, and felt that universities in general, and we're being very specific about Manchester, weren't doing enough to either acknowledge that or to work with communities and the students who are accessing the universities to do something about that. And it felt that very much people were saying that universities were set up predominantly for white students, and anybody who didn't fit a particular model of being an 18-year-old white middle-class student, that the system wasn't really set up for them. So a lot of our conversation then was about power, not surprisingly, and how power could be changed and more evenly distributed, and what needed to happen and what we needed to do. And so at the end of the meeting, the consensus was that we needed to work more in partnership. We needed definitely not just to listen to what the community say, but really listen, and then to act upon that. And so tonight, I'm delighted to come and talk about at least one of the initiatives that we've come up with. But Graham's going to talk to you about several other things that are in the pipeline. And although we're talking specifically about law, because this came out of the School of Law, there are implications and ramifications for other courses, particularly in the criminal justice system, but wider afield into the whole of the university. Is that enough to get us going? All right. So I'm good.
People can come to the front if they.
All right, so don't stand at the back. We've got loads of seats at the front. What is it? Why do we always do that? Look at all these seats at the front. So please encourage people as they come in to come and sit at the front. Or if you're at the back now, why don't you be brave and come forward so that we leave some seats at the back for other people who come in late.
Yeah, we could just take out the front row.
Yeah, and put them at the back.
It's a great crowd, though.
It's fantastic, yeah. And we know that people have obviously, like me, come straight from work. Some of us might have been lucky enough to grab a patty on the way. Others of us, you might hear my tummy rumbling in a minute, but it's great that we're here. So I'm going to ask Graham to introduce himself and to tell you a bit more about how we've built on the work that was started last year with you.
Thank you. Thanks, Dawn. My position in the School of Law is the Director of Social Responsibility. Sorry, is that better?
Yeah.
I'm the Director of Social Responsibility in the School of Law, and Black Lawyers Matter project is my responsibility. And really, I think it's appropriate right at the outset I report back to this meeting, because as well as the direct comments made, the criticisms made of the university at the meeting last year, there were also proposals. It was a very positive meeting, and how we should move forward. And there were summarising, there were 4 proposals that came out of at last year's meeting. That there was needed an information campaign on opportunities for young people coming to the university and how to apply, that the university and the community in Black Lawyers Matter as a project should capitalise on the experiences and skills that there are in the community, and also that some sort of task force advisory group should be set up. And at the end of the meeting, there was consensus that what was most important was partnership working and continuing the dialogue that had been commenced 15 months ago. So really, what did we take away from that from the meeting last year, and what has happened since? Well, pretty much the first thing that happened was that the film of the meeting went up on YouTube. I refer to the meeting as the university getting a metaphorical kicking. And I think it was important that people could see that there's a historical record of what it is that we're seeking to achieve. And I'm grateful to Lauren and Raymond that put that film up on YouTube, and you can now view it on the university's Black Lawyers Matter webpage. It's quite a long address, so if you Google it, and we will do the same with today. I think it is being filmed. The the event is being filmed, so that will be posted up. What else happened was Isabel came along on that evening. We had a seminar in the university during the day, which Isabel came along to, and then at the evening she introduced herself to you. And Isabel has been appointed as the coordinator of the Black Lives Matter project. Really, it's thanks to Isabel that this is the second meeting that has been arranged. There was a meeting that Isabel organised involving the showing of the film Hard Stop, and also Moss Side young leaders came along and talked about their experiences in applying to university, and that was a very positive meeting where there was a very good exchange between community members, young community members and students about the problems faced studying at university. Not just law, but for young black people studying at university. As well as Isabel being appointed, Tunde was appointed as honorary lecturer in the School of Law. And when Charles sends us his CV, Charles will also be nominated as an honorary lecturer. I really have to pay tribute to Charles for the work that he did right at the beginning in both getting Black Lives Matter off the ground and also for that very successful first meeting. And while mentioning Charles, I'll also mention Ornette Clennon. I don't know if you're still at Manchester Met, Ornette, but I think last year you were a visiting fellow, but also played a prominent part in getting Black Lives Matter off the ground. And working with community representatives and lawyers, the law school decided to tackle the problem of underrepresentation of black males in the school by creating 3 bursaries. And these bursaries to be available for students applying for both law and criminology programs. The law school runs criminology programs as well as law programs. And Isabel's going to give more detail about the bursaries. We were delighted when Lemn agreed that they could be named after him. The Lemn they are the Lemn Sissay Law Bursaries, and Lemn will speak for himself later. Now, the bursaries are targeted, and they're targeted at African Caribbean males, UK-based, from low participation neighbourhoods. And I think right at the beginning, Dawn said that the problem that there is in the law school, and we have widening participation programmes, and we have been successful in the law school in attracting a range of students, but we have been singularly unsuccessful in this area. And so as targeted bursaries, these amount to positive action and lawful in compliance with the Equality Act. That means to say that they are for the recruitment of a disadvantaged group to the law school as students. So I'll let Isabel talk about the bursaries, Lemn to talk also about them. But just to say also, outreach work has commenced with lawyers. And it's fundamental. The success of the project is not about recruitment to the School of Laws. As some lawyers have said to us, really the project is black male students matter. That is not the case. This is about working through the process, overcoming the obstacles that people face in order to become lawyers, and really success is to be measured when students students come to the university actually get jobs as lawyers. And we're very pleased that so far 2 law firms have said that they will guarantee work experience placements to holders of the bursaries. That's work experience in their first summer after completion of the first year. But the Black Lawyers Matter project hasn't stopped there. Meetings, because in the law school we teach law and criminology, and as Dawn has already said, this is not a problem that is restricted to law and the law degrees. It's across education, it's across the law school. The figure of 14 students is for all law school programs, including criminology. And criminology students tend, and it's not set in stone, but tend to seek careers in criminal justice. That's police, CPS, lawyers and CPS as well, probation service, etc. So Black Lawyers Matter is going to be working in these areas, working with practitioners across the criminal justice sector in order to enhance the prospects of bursary holders and our students in this area. The final point I wish to make is that this started as the law school on its own wanting to do something about the problem in the law school. And the university recognises Black Lawyers Matter as a project. We're being observed as to how we progress. And our hope, obviously, is that we will become part of something larger, both in the university. Also, we've been talking to Manchester Metropolitan University's Law School about collaborating with them. But overarchingly, it's something that we can't solve this problem on our own. This is much bigger than the law school, and really we want to be part of something rather than leading something. So I'll leave it there and maybe come back later about thoughts on the way forward, the thoughts that we've been having, the discussions that we've been having on how to take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. So Isabella's going to tell you a little bit about herself and also about the bursary, importantly about the bursary and how people can apply.
Hello everyone, my name is Isabella, I work in the law school, I don't know how well you can hear me. I'm a local Hume resident, I did my degree at the University of Manchester, graduated 10 years ago now, and came back to work as an admin assistant in January last year, and then was really inspired by this project, something I'm passionate about anyway, so when the opportunities came up to sort of work on something that could have such a really beneficial impact within my community, I sort of jumped at the chance, and I feel very honoured and privileged to have been given a role, albeit, you know, a couple of days a week, to do this. So I want to thank everyone who's been very patient and supportive with me in my sort of slightly haywire way of doing things. And I'm really pleased that all of you have come down here today to learn more about the bursaries and to give us your feedback and contribution and learn more about what we're doing. So in terms of the bursaries, the people can only apply once they've already made an application to university through UCAS. So later on in October, we've got 2 separate sessions which are set up to help people who maybe don't know about how to write a personal statement, they might not know how to put in a UCAS application, maybe they're unsure about what other courses they might like to apply to. And that event is actually going to be open to everyone. It's called the Black Lawyers Matter Access Day. So if you're a parent of someone who might be wanting to apply, a friend, maybe you yourself are just interested in studying, potentially in law, potentially in other areas, we want to encourage everyone to come down that day. And we're going to have tailored support to enable people to put in their applications and find out what studying at the university is like, find out about finance, all of these like key areas. and also to find out about the other programs that are already running at the uni. We've got, as has been mentioned, we've got lots of different widening participation programs, and one of the things that came out from last year's meeting is that people don't really know about them in this community. Even though they're kind of set up for us, we maybe not got quite the same access to it. So that's why we've got our colleagues here today to discuss that. And we're also, one of the main things that we wanted to do is not only kind of increase the number of black students within the law school, but also just increase the level of participation within the community and the university. We've got archives, we've got museums, we've got art galleries, we've got all sorts of stuff going on. And I know, as a member of this community, that most people are extremely passionate about our heritage, about various other things, and all of those things can be developed, enhanced and supported, even if you're not a student, through the facilities at the university. So that's another really important aspect of the programme. So we've got the Access Day in October. We've also got a UCAS workshop, which is going to be a couple of weeks after. And then we're going to be doing a Black History Month event at Manchester Museum, looking at the legal issues around reparations and the returning of objects in our collections to Africa. So that's hopefully going to be very interesting. We've got some really interesting people coming up for it. And it's designed in a way to appeal, you know, across the board, but also specifically to parents. We really want to reach out to parents. We're aware that, you know, there's sometimes a sort of negative perception of the university, sometimes quite rightly. So we're wanting to bring people in, engage, provide things that are of interest, and really kind of create a new, more dynamic, more sort of co-productive relationship between Moss Side specifically, but the whole of Manchester's African and African Caribbean communities. I'm going to be here for the whole event. If anyone wants to ask me any more questions about the process for applying or anything like that, and I think I'll pass on to the next speaker now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So it's my pleasure to invite our Chancellor, so Lem's the Chancellor of Manchester University, and I don't know if you explain what that is to them, and he's going to tell you about why he has agreed to put his name to these bursaries. So Lem.
Thanks so much for asking me to be here, and thanks for being here. My name is Lemn Sissay, and I'm Chancellor of the University of Manchester. My role is symbolic of the university, and really, as this is the Lemn Sissay Law, but these are the Lemn Sissay Law Bursaries, I get to say what Americans say at the end of adverts, which is, I endorse this product, and then just walk away. I would never have dreamed, as I became Chancellor at the University of Manchester, that an opportunity such as this and a conversation such as this would happen, and is happening. This is not just a conversation, there is action here. The bursary, which is amongst many bursaries, and a massive access programme, which is central to the university's goals, core 3 goals, one of which is social responsibility. I'd never have dreamed that I would be here in this, in the West Indian Sports and Social Centre, which I came to when I was about 21 years of age, when I walked from Lancashire, from Wigan to Manchester to find out more about myself. Tunde here, Tunde, I want to say your name right, but if I say it wrong, please tell me. I've been called Lemn Sissay quite a few times, so my heart's with you. Tunde Okewale, thank you, MBE and barrister. Came from a home in Hackney where nobody else had gone to university at that time, is now a barrister. I mean, on Doughty Street, in Chambers, is everything that I would expect and want the young black youth of Manchester to aspire to be and to become. And the fact that this university is making the link between yourself, myself, and the young black men of our community is just everything that I would want of becoming Chancellor. You said in the last time you were here, and it's amazing for a barrister to say this, if you look at the language, you said it would be a crime if I didn't give something back. And I wrote that down, and I thought it was just incredible coming from a barrister, and utterly quotable, tweetable. And I feel the same way. So I'm honoured to be asked to put my name to this bursary and to spread knowledge about it as far and wide as possible as the Chancellor of this incredible university, which has a black male Chancellor and a female Vice-Chancellor, which is radical as a university and which has a lot to answer to because it does much, and that's right. Yeah, that's me. Yes, yeah. Graham's asked me to say a poem at the end, and I'm going to read a poem at the end of this, and it'll be the one about the university.
Yeah, great. So don't go. Something to stay for.
Don't say no, I'm going.
Okay, so...
Pop in with one more point before we
Yeah, so Isabella?
Sorry. One of the other things that I wanted to say and then forgot was as a university, we're building capacity to have conversations around race. And I think that's one of the really important things about this bursary is it's giving us a forum, it's giving us the tools and the opportunity to get together as university staff, who are also members of the community sometimes and not, to talk about what does disproportionality mean, what does institutional racism mean, what does it look like, how does it play out, how do we tackle it. And these are really difficult conversations. I know that within the black community, we're very au fait. We've got PhDs on discussing that sort of thing. But it's not the same for everybody else. And I think the University of Manchester is the only university in the whole country that's got a scheme like this. And I think it's a really bold move in the right direction. And I'm hoping that it's going to change a lot of things across the university.
Thank you. So we've talked quite a bit. So before I introduce some other members of the panel, I just wondered whether there's anything that you wanted to ask about what you've heard so far or any comments you wanted to make. And while people are going to do that, if you're sitting at the back or standing at the back, there's lots of seats at the front, so please make your way forward. And I think there's some microphones going around. Where I don't know who's got the microphones. So there's a lady here with hand up. Do you want to just wait for the microphone? So I think it helps with the recording.
Yeah, it's just to say, could you give your surnames?
Oh.
Please, because I'm not clear about Graham's surname or Isabella's, and we're making notes, so thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Smith. Graham Smith.
Isabel Cox, COX.
Okay. So, one hand here. Ladies. Oh, yeah.
Wait for the microphone. The bursaries, are they just for 1 year? Is it 3 bursaries for 1 year?
The bursaries are for the full duration of the programme, so if someone does a 3-year programme, they'll get £3,000 for each year.
It's 3 people for 1 degree.
Yeah.
So in relation to these lads here, these are all in high school, how is this going to help them?
Well, currently, we're planning a number of, sort of trips out to schools to promote the project, to promote the various different events that we're going to be doing. So there's going to be a sort of broadening of programming in terms of the events that we're doing that we hope that will be of interest to the young men that you've brought along. Until they're actually at A-level age, they won't be eligible to apply for this scheme. But there's lots of other stuff going on within the university that will be directly relevant them, that we're hoping we can pass that information more effectively onto them via Black Lives Matter. I don't know if that fully answered your question.
I've not brought them, I think the teachers...
Oh, right, sorry, I'm getting confused about who's who.
But I think picking up on what Isabella, I don't know if you quite grasped it earlier on, Isabella was talking about the event that's going to come up where people are going to be able to get support with personal statements, and with UCAS Farm. So we know that those are some of the things that actually mean that people don't get onto the degrees that they want to get onto, the programs they want to get onto, because sometimes they don't have the support to actually complete the paperwork in a way that will give them the best chance of being successful. And as we've said, although that we're here talking about activities within the School of Law, it has wider repercussions across the university. And I know Stephanie Lee is here, she's head of widening participation, so it may be worthwhile, if we get the microphone to Stephanie, for just to say something about the range of activities that we're doing in lots and lots of schools across Greater Manchester that will support young people from a range of different backgrounds to come into the university.
Stephanie, could you stand up so we can see you?
Yeah, sure.
Great, thank you.
Can everybody hear me?
It's just really we should be doing it young.
Yep, so The university does lots of outreach activities with schools and colleges across Greater Manchester, and we have some information here tonight on the stand. So Catherine will give you a wave. Catherine's in my team, and she's one of the people that delivers activities with local schools and colleges. So we've brought some information along tonight about some of the activities that we do. We work with primary schools through to adults who are thinking about coming back to education who may not have been to university themselves. So a huge range of programmes. One of the programmes we've got information about is the Manchester Access Programme, which can support students in the sixth form who are interested in going to university. And alongside the Lemn Sissay Bursaries, we have bursaries for students from low-income families, no matter what course they do at the university. And about a third of the students who start university at Manchester, so that's over 2,000 students each year, get our Manchester bursary of up to £2,000 a year for each year that they study at the university. So if you want to know more about the work that we do, then please come and chat to me later on. I'll be here after the talk, so please come and find me.
Thank you. I just want to mention Terry. So Terry, did you just want to stand for us? So Terry's here representing Reclaim, who are a fantastic organisation, born and bred in Moss Side. So perhaps Terry can say a bit more about them. And really importantly, we're working with Reclaim to do some work in the community about empowering young people. So I'm sure you tell them.
I live on Barnhall Street, which is actually down the road, so it's nice to be here, and I'm sort of reiterate everything that Lemn was saying about seeing black people to get together and being so empowered. So I am from Reclaim, which is a social change and activism program based in central Manchester, and it was formed in Moss Side in 2007 after the tragedy that happened to Jesse James. And we've developed a program alongside the University of Manchester to support young people who might not have the necessary sort of networks or understanding of higher education, but provide that support so they can see their potential fulfilled. And using the expertise of Reclaim and the University of Manchester, we're going to see a lot of people sort of follow that stream into higher education, hopefully into careers such as law.
Thank you. Thanks, Terry. Yeah.
Hi. The gentleman mentioned earlier that there's a misconception that the programme is specifically aimed at black males. So why then are females not allowed to apply for the bursary?
There's a difference between the project itself, which is a general overarching project, which is addressing the problem of underrepresentation in the legal and criminal justice professions for all black people and minority groups, male and female. But in order for us to start this project, we identified a particular problem that there is in the law school. Now, that particular problem is that we have been unable to reach UK-based male students of African or African Caribbean heritage. And we have been able to reach female students, and the actual figures are that we have 14 males and 67 females. So that's in terms of the targeting, that's what makes what we're doing lawful under the Equality Act. And it's really quite important that we do address this underrepresentation in the school. So that's why they're targeted at male students. But as Stephanie said, there are bursaries available, different bursaries. But a particular aspect of this project are the Lemn Sissay bursaries. It's as we've consulted and as we've spoken to lawyers, they've said that they are faced with exactly the same problem. That when we spoke to the Solicitors Regulation Authority, which is the regulatory body for solicitors, they came on board straight away and said it's very significant that they are targeted, because this is where there is a particular problem. When we spoke to Greater Manchester Police, and Charles maybe can speak more about this later, we were told there the problem is in recruiting African Caribbean, African females to serve in the police force. So there are different problems, and we're wanting to address the problem in its full range. And we're also listening to what people are telling us about what the problem is specifically in some areas and the much more general problem. And I think that's why we say when Black Lives Matter is addressing the problem of underrepresentation more generally, that is what we seek to do.
Is there any age restriction?
Just wait one second.
Is there any age restrictions to the bursary that is available for Black lawyers?
No, there isn't. There's two different entry requirement, not entry requirements, eligibility criteria, which one applies to people who are, you know, sort of around the age of 18 who are studying. Hello? Oh. And the other is for mature learners, as we call them. So no, there's no age limit.
Okay, that is very good for me, because in my case, I was actually a member of the School of Law for a particular university, but in the middle of my course, because of financial difficulties, my student status was revoked. So I'm very much glad for this seminar and information regarding bursary and fees to re-enter law school.
Great.
Yeah.
At the last meeting, I think this was part of the discussion, and it was very much raised. And unfortunately, he's not here, but somebody who was then training as a solicitor and has since qualified and gave his age as 41, and said that really this is an issue that is across generations, and again, this is something we've taken back, and this we see for people returning to education, that this is going to be a very important part of this project. Also, there was quite a lot said on this issue about people from the African Caribbean community coming to education later, and why that may be.
Okay, two more here, and then.
Is there eligibility criteria for the students who are in, you know, GCSE or A-level age? Because you said something about there being different workshops, kind of helping them with personal statements.
Yeah, there's going to be a couple of workshops which are targeted at people who are what we sort of classify as sixth form age, and then for older learners as well. And in terms of the criteria to apply, I haven't got the information in front of me, but I think we've done one about if you've ever been in receipt of free school meals. So that's for people who are, you know, studying at sixth form college, or, you know, and then the other one, which is aimed at the older learners, is people who've been in receipt of means-tested benefits. Because if we just had it as if you've ever received free school meals, there's no way of us verifying that for someone who's like 40 or something. So that's why we've got the two slightly different eligibility criteria. And yeah, we thought it was really important that it's open for older learners as well, because BME people, or global majority as I prefer to say, are 40% more likely to enter university. I know it's a bit of a hot topic, that BME one, isn't it? 40% more likely to be mature students than white or white people. So, you know, there's a lot of different reasons for that. We could talk all day about that, really. But going back to the point about targeting it on men, I think in our first year cohort on the law courses at the minute, we've got something about 28 black women and 3 black men. So that's how big the disproportion is. And it's actually across all universities. I think the only courses where the disproportion is tilted the other way is on like engineering and things like that. So this is, you know, a national problem. It's not just at the University of Manchester in terms of fewer men going into these, you know, this sort of humanities study, etc. So it's a big problem, and I think it personally, I think it's a result of the way that black men experience racism differently from the way that black women do, and the different impacts that can have you know, on in terms of your career progression, in terms of your schooling, for example. And, you know, I'm very happy that this has been targeted in that way so we can address that.
Can I just add, because that relates also to the first question, and we're aware, and I think Stephanie and the expertise there in widening participation, that really at sixth form it can be too late in order to attract somebody to a particular degree programme. And we're fully aware of this, but we've only just launched the bursaries. Therefore, in order to get people in for next September, we're having to focus on current A-level students or people that are doing access courses. But as we are learning all the time, but one of the things we would want to do is to lower that, so we start approaching and doing work. And I think accepted wisdom is it's year 10, really. This work needs to start at year 10.
We think sooner. We think sooner.
Yeah.
Year 10's too
Yeah.
late.
So, but this, because it's the first year, we're having to go, and because we really want to try and get students in September.
Sorry, can I just ask as well, do you have the statistics on the number of black males that actually applied to Manchester versus the number that were accepted? And is it a question of them not meeting the academic requirements? And then in that case, is there anything that is going to be offered in that respect?
There was actually some research done earlier in the year, which Stephanie Lee shared with us, which was done into exactly that point, trying to figure out who's applying, because, you know, perhaps the reason we haven't got many black men studying in the School of Law is because none of them are applying. You know, that was one of the things that was floated at last year's meeting. Or perhaps the more troubling conclusion would be that people are applying and there's unconscious bias at work, and they're not getting in. Now, what this piece of research showed us is that people are applying, but unfortunately they're applying for courses that they don't meet the entry requirements for. So for law, it's 3 A's, for example, which is really difficult to get 3 A's, you know, particularly if you're at a school like I went to what's now known as Chorlton High. You know, I did my A-levels in the evening at night school. I've lost my train of thought there a bit. What were we talking about?
Academic requirements.
Oh, right, yeah. Sorry, I've lost it again. I've got so many different things going on in my head.
I think what's being done to actually help them meet those academic requirements, if that's a thing.
The whole reason we've got this Access Day is because obviously not everyone's going to be getting predicted 3 A's who would like to come and study law or who potentially would like to become a lawyer. So we want to make people fully aware of the range of courses that are on offer that have different entry requirements. You know, you don't necessarily have to study law to be a lawyer. There's changes afoot in the next few years. So we're very aware of those barriers. And people were applying with the wrong entry requirements. So that points to them not being given quite the right guidance at the application, which is what we're hoping to change.
So it makes, just before, once you pass the microphone on, if Stephanie, do you want to just come in on that point, about some of the work we're doing?
Thanks. Just to add to what Isabel said, that's what the research found, that although we have lots of applications, the offers weren't being made, but that wasn't, but that was due to the entry requirements and the grades that those students were applying with. We recognise at the university that A-levels isn't necessarily the only way or the best way of identifying potential, which is why our Manchester Access programme for students in Greater Manchester, for students who complete that programme, they're given 2 grades lower than the standard entry requirements. So students who complete that programme for the School of Law could enter the School of Law with an A and 2 Bs. And so for any course within the university, the entry requirements are lowered by 2 grades, and that's aimed at students when they first start their sixth form studies.
Sorry. Is there going to be anything to kind of ensure that those students actually meet the academic demands of the course whilst they're studying law if you're going to reduce the grade boundaries? Because there's a risk that they would graduate not kind of meeting academic excellence only to then meet the same barriers when they're applying for jobs?
Yeah. So we find through our the students who take part in our Manchester Access programme, on the whole, do as well as students who haven't done that programme. Not all the students on the Manchester Access programme need the lower grades. So many of them do meet the standard entry requirements, but the fact that they've got that lower offer can give them the confidence that they're going to get their place. So that can help them as well, and they don't all need to have that lower offer. And in terms of employment, it's really interesting that we find that the students who've gone through our Manchester Access programme come into the university actually have better employment outcomes than other students at the university, and that is across a whole range of subjects. So it doesn't seem to have an impact then on their ability to complete this course. They have better completion rates than any other students at the university, and they also have really successful employment outcomes.
Are you saying they have better employment prospects than their peers who are not on the Manchester Access programme?
They have higher employability outcomes, yes. Yeah. And that might be because of the types of courses that they've done. It might be because of the support, the advice that they got in choosing their course. But I'd be happy to talk to you more about the Manchester Access programme afterwards, and I can tell you a little bit more about what the programme does.
Yeah. And I can't see her here, but one of my good friends, her daughter went through the Manchester Access programme and is now a GP. She just now started the GP programme, so she graduated from the medical school and completed, and she's now started a GP training. So I know from personal experience, being up close and personal, that it works. And I think the point you're making, though, is really well made, because one of the misconceptions about the Manchester Access programme and other widening participation is that it's about the lowering of standards to allow black and poor students to come into the university, and that is absolutely not what it's about. It's about acknowledging that the playing field isn't level to begin with. Yeah. And as Isabella said, the kind of school that you go to might mean that just the information, we've already hinted at that from the question that you've asked. The kind of information and advice that you've been given at school, the way you're being prepared to come to university, varies tremendously across the board. And we think, we're not sure, but we think that part of the reason why people on the Manchester Access programme do so well is because that engagement with the university as they're preparing for university life enables them, kind of builds their capacity, builds the social networks and the social capital, which a lot of students not from these kind of neighbourhoods already have. They have those connections within their families. Dad's a lawyer, mum's a doctor. So, do you know what I mean? So they have those connections already. And what we're doing by bringing people into the university is giving some of those soft skills that often people don't have. I'm really conscious that we've got a panel here and we're doing a lot of talking without them. So you're keen to speak. So do you want to introduce yourself first?
Yeah. My name is Sally Penny. I'm a barrister practicing here in Manchester. I spend my time in Manchester and London. My chambers are Kenworthy's chambers. I wasn't that keen to speak. I was just going to say I've nothing to do with the university. I was asked here by Lemn and Isabel, so thank you for inviting me. But well done, Manchester University, for actually doing something about the problem. Until there were less black men in prison, like I see, and more practicing law, this is a great bursary. So I hope everyone tells everybody else about it, and we all apply. Secondly, the only thing I was keen to say was that the lady asking all the questions, you can make a Freedom of Information request, I'm sure. But that aside, however we see this bursary panning out, it's a great, great bursary, and let's speak about it and get more people to apply. And other universities, quite frankly, are not providing access programs in the same way as Manchester University is. I see lots of applications, I can tell you, and so do lots of law firms, and so do lots of barristers' chambers, and I think this is a really good start.
I think just on that point.
So do you want to just say who you are first?
My name's Kyle Blackburn from the Black Solicitors Network. I think on the point of other universities maybe not having to do these kind of access courses is perhaps because they don't necessarily have the same problem that maybe the University of Manchester has. That could be one reason why. So.
No, it's not. They have it worse.
Well, I mean, I know that the university I went to, which was Man Met, it was quite diverse, so instantly looking at that, there's clearly
Yeah, there's a big disparity between what's known as Russell Group universities and newer universities. So MMU, Manchester Metropolitan University, is a newer university. It's an excellent institution. It's got loads of amazing staff there. They also offer law programmes. We've got some of their prospectuses on the table over there. Now, the difference is the entry requirements are a bit lower. And the chances of you getting a 3As if you're a secondary school pupil at a state-maintained school and then go on to a state-maintained sixth form is so much lower than if you've gone to private school, if you're coming from a really middle-class background. So there are other universities that are more diverse, and it's not only just because of entry requirements, it's sometimes because the way they do their outreach is different, where they're geographically located is different. But when you look at the Russell Group, which is, the so-called top universities in the country, Manchester is actually better than most of the other universities. If you look at somewhere like Durham or York or Edinburgh, there's no black people there at all. Bristol, so the Russell Group universities in London do a little bit better, but then there's a lot more black people in London than there are in Manchester. But the University of Manchester is located within Manchester's black community, and so that's another reason, or another big push to do this. There's so much more that can be done, and this is just the beginning of that. So yeah, other universities don't have the same problems, but they're not all universities aren't the same, I guess.
So Tunde, are you going to say something about pipeline and getting people into law?
First thing I'd want to say is that thank you to you for being here this evening. Without you, it wouldn't have been possible. And thank you to my parents. I know it sounds random, but without my parents, it's true, I wouldn't have been a barrister. I come from a very strict African household. I had 4 options: lawyer, doctor, accountant, or failure. So that was complicit in terms of me pursuing a career in law and being able to succeed. One of the things that I noticed, and it deals with a point that was made earlier from that side of the room, is that certainly from the community, there's a lack of long-term perspective and planning. So the importance of you young people being in the room today is this: the sooner that you're specific in terms of what you want to do, the sooner you'll be successful. Okay? And it's that simple. The thing that I noticed is that individuals from different communities are very clear about what they want to do and where they want to go, and that makes it much easier for them to identify opportunities that are available. What happens is that in our community, there's a lack of awareness about opportunities. We may have some responsibility for not looking for them. Also, there may be responsibility from the institutions for not making them more visible. But either way, the importance of it is that if you know what you want to do, you can start planning your career path. And that puts you at an advantage to others who are still unsure. And that's the reason why it's important. So for example, now, you know what all the entry requirements will be. You can start making sure you get the grades from now, rather than not getting the grades and then having to, say, oh, well, it was very difficult for me. You don't want to be reactionary, you want to be very proactive. So that's why it's quite important that from an early stage, you identify what exactly it is you want. The biggest barrier for entry, besides finance, is confidence. Certainly something I experienced was, is this for me? The bar historically has been stale, male, middle class, and white, okay? There's been progress recently. However, there's still going to be that barrier of confidence for people that don't necessarily come from that same environment. And one of the good things about the bursary is that there's an awareness of that, hence why there's an opportunity for you to have work experience. There are the supplementary workshops that will give you the soft skills that you need. So it's not only the case that, well, we're going to give you the money so you can, do the course. It's preparing you for what happens after the course. So that's why it's very important that you're here today, you get the information, and you share it, amongst the community. Because we don't necessarily want to have a dialogue in 15 months' time where people are saying, we didn't know about this, that nobody told us. Where in fact, we all have, an opportunity to be ambassadors now to actually just share the importance of this bursary. I also want to thank the members of staff from the University of Manchester. One of the things is that there are many instances where initiatives are created and run by an institution, but people don't come and support it. On that side of the room, it's full of, University of Manchester staff that have given up their evening to actually listen, to find out what the community want, and to try and actually be involved. And you don't actually get that, okay? And they're not all from BME backgrounds as well. So that's an awareness to demonstrate that, the issues that not necessarily impact a wider community are cared about, and people actually want to do something about it.
I'm just interested in how the scheme will work for students once they're actually in the law school. So obviously we have the bursary, but will there be some sort of mentorship program, leadership program for those students that have the bursary?
Because we're sort of a year from when the first lot of students would actually start, we haven't confirmed all of the details of what will take place when they're on the course, but there will definitely be work placements. That's something that's in the process of being confirmed at the minute. We've got a couple of really high-flying law firms in London who are sort of biting our hands off to get these scholars, bursary holders onto their internship programs. And mentoring is something that we definitely will also want to have as part of the programme. I think sometimes mentoring can be used as a bit of a sort of catch-all, like, oh, we'll just give someone a mentor and then they'll have a couple of emails and that'll sort of solve all of their problems. So we're not going to kind of do that. So we're trying to do everything a bit differently from usual. If anyone has any suggestions about things that they think would be really useful for people once they are actually on the course, we're all ears when it comes to that. So.
And it's worthwhile saying as well that obviously students will be in the law school, but they're also part of the wider university. And the university has a really, really successful peer mentoring scheme and a whole range of other programs. So as well as reading for your whatever degree you're reading for, you have the opportunity to be a part of the Manchester Leadership Programme. You can take lots of additional courses on top of your degree. We know that has for some students that's a particular issue, because if your background is quite, in terms of socioeconomic status, is if you have to work a lot, then it means that some of those things are difficult for you to access. And again, that's where the bursary kicks in, is that sometimes students from lower participating neighbourhoods, as we call them, are not able to take part in some of those extracurricular activities where they can acquire those soft skills, where they can really beef up their CVs that make them really competitive after the degrees are finished, because they're having to work as well as being at university. And that's where this kind of thing works. But there are a whole range of different mentoring schemes within each faculty and across the university. And starting next week, we'll be doing lots and lots of work. You'll see them from Freshers Week, including, we don't call it Freshers Week anymore, it's like Welcome Week, including a whole Stellify program. And the idea behind Stellify, which I didn't even know as a verb, is to turn people into stars. And that's about reaching out to all students. Every single student who starts next week in year one will be part of a program where they will be mixed up. So I'll be running seminars with people from law, and they may be sitting next to somebody from engineering, next to somebody from psychology or languages, and they'll all come together in groups to solve kind of modern day problems. So they'll be given a series of challenges over a whole day that force them to work together. And that one of the things that we're trying to do with that is to break people out of silos so that they can kind of lift their eyes and look across the wider university and kind of network with other people.
Can I just add to that? That in terms of mentoring, there's mentoring as a student mentoring, and there's also mentoring by practitioners. And as we reach out to practitioners, we're expecting mentoring practitioners, lawyers, to actually mentor students on these bursaries. So really, it goes back to the project is about practitioners, that people going through the university coming out the other end, doing their training, qualifications, and becoming practitioners with practitioners. And that's why it's so encouraging that as soon as we connected with a network, a lawyer network, immediate response was to offer placements to students in the first year.
So we've got a couple of hands, and then I really want to go back to the network, to the Black Solicitors Network, and to Charles.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I was really interested in what Tunde said about confidence and linking it to what the lady over there said about the perception of lowering entry requirements. Because I am relatively new to Manchester, but I went to a comprehensive school in Bradford. And when I talked to some of my classmates at university time about why don't we try for Oxford, everybody sat back and said, no, we couldn't do that. I don't feel that that's for me. So I did it by myself, and I was the first person from my comprehensive school to go to Oxford and studied law there.
Wow.
And but what I found in terms of positive discrimination is the most astonishing positive discrimination in favour of white, middle and upper-class males. One of my tutors told me in the second year that they actively discriminated in favour of men because if they didn't, they wouldn't have a 50-50 balance because the women got so much better A-level results. And I got 4 grade A's at A-level, and I still had my contemporaries asking me if I got in on some kind of black scholarship. So the playing field is tilted so far in their favour. These are people who have had tutors since the age of 7, who have been aiming to get them to Oxford, who have got in on special scholarships from that one public school to that one Oxbridge college, and they always put, not the best student, because the best student will get in anyway, somebody a bit lower down. I went to the same college as David Cameron, and I saw the level of privilege that they have and the level of excuses that are made for them. You know, somebody from Moss Side might go and trash a restaurant. They would be in jail.
That's right.
Lord Sainsbury, who was there with me, trashed a restaurant. Parents paid for it. No criminal record. So I wouldn't worry about the playing field being tilted in our favour because it is so far the other way.
Yeah. That's a fantastic...
So whilst we're waiting for the next question, can we just want to invite you, if you're at the back, to come forward. I think somebody has a microphone there. There's somebody at the front here with a question.
I do apologise. I did come late, so I don't know if this question was actually covered. But I was just wondering what, in respect of retention of BME students, how that goes at Manchester University.
So, sorry, I'm not sure. Are you asking specifically about the law programme?
Not necessarily specifically, because I'm a student welfare officer at a university myself.
Okay.
And I'm working on retention, so I was just looking for some advice or...
Okay. Well, I'm doing some work on attainment and retention, so I'm happy to talk to you about that. I can't see you, you're around the corner. I'm happy to talk to you about that, and as I think somebody said earlier on, the information, you can get it on for freedom of information, but I'm happy to talk to you about that. Is that okay? Because it sounds like quite a specific question. Yeah.
Good evening. A couple of points. First of all, I'd like to commend Manchester University on this initiative. I'm incredibly inspired and buoyed by it. It is remarkable, it is unusual, and I do hope that it really sets a trend and inspires other institutions of your ilk. I really do resonate with the point that's been made in relation to the unfairness, the injustice, which is so evident within the legal profession and other professions. I myself was a criminal barrister for 16 years in the same chambers as Miss Penny. And I was there before her, I keep telling her that.
She left,
so
she left me.
But what I think is really important is this. It is really noteworthy that there is the access course and the access support for perhaps your more mature students or your students who don't perhaps meet the criteria. And that's very necessary work, and I celebrate that. But that seems to me to be one prong to a necessary multi-pronged approach. And that ties in with the work that needs to be done earlier in your primary schools? Because in reality, the reality is that your access course students, I hear you mention about law firms being open to it, but I wonder what expressions of interest you have in the higher echelons of your barristers' chambers, for example. And so you've got our access course students who may not have the A-level grades, and they're looking back to their A-level grades, competing with your public school students and graduates. And so the work of empowering our BME students must start much earlier. It must start in the primary schools. It must start at a very early stage where they are enabled, they are empowered, so that they can see themselves in that position. They can see themselves wearing the wig and the gown and being in the courtroom and representing their community. The other point that I wanted to make is this. It's the importance of our community helping our young people and our young children to see the nexus and the relevance of law in their own life. So I'll give myself as an example. I grew up during the 1980s, during the Moss Side riots, and I had around me the likes of Gus John and Darcus Howe, and I had my dad who was a social activist, a community activist. And from a very, very early age, I remember a meeting in Moss Side Precinct at 5, 6, 7, where the community got together and said, we together can articulate our voice. It was there that I saw the nexus of the law with my life and how, when we use our voice, we can make a difference. And so if we can do that as elders, share wisdom, bring insight, and help the community and help the young people to see how important law is for them and that they have a voice and they have a part to play, and law is a medium. When you can see the why, it makes the how much more possible.
Yeah, brilliant. So that's fantastic. That's good. So,
I'd just like to ask if this seminar is targeting students for academic year 2017 or 18-19.
17 are starting next week.
Yeah. It's still not started yet.
Yeah, if you apply through UCAS, you have to do it much sooner. Yeah, it's a bit late.
So this seminar is definitely targeting students for 18-19 semester.
Yeah, it's for people who are sort of thinking now about which universities I want to go to, what entry requirements, beginning to think about making an application. The deadline for applications through UCAS, which is the organisation that every student has to apply through, regardless of which university you go to, the deadline for that is the 15th of January. So we've got these workshops coming up in October to prepare people for that deadline. And then you'll submit your application, fingers crossed, a successful offer, and then you'd start in September 2018.
Okay. So I'm going to ask Charles to speak now, but before he does, I'm just going to pick up on a point you made about starting young. Can I just ask you to raise your hand if you're a school governor? Okay. So there's the challenge. Okay. We need more school governors in primary schools, inspiring children. So I'm a governor of a school in Longsight, and it's great when I go in to read with the children and they say, "What do you do, miss?" And I can say, "I work at the University of Manchester." And they go, "Do you? What do you do?" Because, Graham was talking about people coming through and having a career in law. Very few people think about having an academic career. Yeah. So when I'm saying to 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds, you can work at the university, you can teach other people. Well, especially the girls, they're ready. They're ready to start marking, giving people marks. They're really up for that. So I'm just encouraging you. We talked about what can we do, and sometimes, it's easy to think about what other people can do. What's the university doing? What's the Black Solicitors Network doing? What are the police doing? But each one of us can do something. These young people here, you can mentor somebody who's younger than you are. So it's not all about coming down. You can mentor sideways and down. And certainly for those of us who've not yet considered the possibility of being a school governor, I really urge you to use the skills, the knowledge, the experiences that you have to support your local primary school. It's a great way to begin.
Is it worth saying that 80% of the people who put their hands up actually work at the University of Manchester.
Yeah.
Is that, you know, we've got a really high amount.
Yeah, because we've got a program that actually actively supports school governors. We actually got called a school governors program, where people from the university are given time off to actually support local all schools, not just primary schools. I happen to be one at a primary school.
Right, good evening, Charles Critchlow. I'm going to keep my comments very brief.
You want to say who you are, Charles?
I come with 27 years of experience working within the criminal justice system, specifically within policing. And I'm also a graduate from the university in the School of Law, specifically. As I said, I'm really inspired by a number of the interventions from the audience. And I'm really, really delighted that people have taken the time to come out and support the event. I think at the last event, we had an even bigger turnout, and it kind of puts to bed this question that we almost like we don't care about education. And I think I know my people, and our people care passionately about education, and I think that black lawyers matter. All right, that's the name of the scholarship, but I think legal consciousness matters. And I think I'm alluding to the point that was made here. We don't only need to, in a sense, conscientize our young people, but I think we need to conscientize the whole of the community, because law relates to everything. And I would say, you may not be interested in the law, but at some point, the law may be interested in you. And we need to... And therefore, this question is relevant to every single one of us, and we should pay very, very close attention to this. David Lammy came out with a report last week. And to be honest with you, it wasn't anything new, but it was just a reminder that when you look at every aspect, every stage of the criminal justice system, there is unfairness. Now, the criminal justice system is supposed to it's supposed to be fair. That's supposed to be the core element. Yeah. But when you look at policing, you look at the Crown prosecutions, when you look at the judiciary, and you look at who gets sent to prison for how long, all of these things, our experience is very, very different from other people. And so this is an issue that we need to pay very serious attention to. Now, I think that this event is not about celebrating a victory. It's about recognizing that we've taken some important steps. And I think the university should be congratulated for that, yeah? But I also think that the activist community, don't let up. We need to come out and ask these questions, because what we recognize is when you ask questions, when you put pressure on, things happen. Things happen. And it isn't just about, there are always, the issues relating to men and the treatment of men in the criminal justice system is often sort of highlighted. My friend here, Abba, will tell you, and I know you work in the criminal justice system, particularly around women, is that the experiences of women in the criminal justice system is something that we should really, really be focusing on, in a very, very serious way. So this isn't just about running numbers through the School of Law and, and going and working in a law firm and we never see you again. This is about much, much more. And I think you really, really put the point beautifully. So I would say, I cut it there, but I really welcome the steps, that you've taken, and the community, the involvement, and trying to keep the university honest. And we really need to stay with this, And I think that one of the political acts that the activist community and we should encourage the young people to do is to make sure that this bursary doesn't disappear in a couple of years' time. That would be a really, really beautiful political act. If we say, well, look, we're going to monitor this. We're going to look at this, yeah? Because that tends to happen. I'm not saying that in a hypercritical sense, but that does tend to happen. You know, things come out in a blaze of glory, and then when we go away and we say, okay, yes, you know, we've had a wonderful event, all of a sudden you want, well, what happened to that scholarship? Well, he's gone, but we didn't pay attention. We went to sleep. So that will be something that the community and the young people in particular can really pay attention to and make that, you know, make that your mission to ensure that this project stays on course. Thank you.
And it's a really... So it's really important that, that we apply, because that's the quickest way for it to disappear. Because people can say, well, we had a bursary, but nobody applied for it. So that's a really important thing, is that we need to get the applications. And then Patrick, so Patrick, can somebody get the microphone to Patrick? He'll tell you a bit about what Patrick does. But you're tasked with the evaluation of a programme, aren't you? Monitoring and evaluation.
Hi, yes. I think part of what we're trying to do is actually have a look at this and see this as really a pilot in terms of what can we learn from this particular project and what can we then apply across the rest of the university. So it really is the university having a look and seeing how successful this can be and to evaluate it all the way through to see what we can do further on with other courses as well.
Thank you. So there's a hand here. So the lady's been waiting for a while. So if you speak, and then we're going to pass over to the Black Solicitors Network, because we really want to hear a bit more from you.
Thank you. One reason I'm here tonight is that my late father came in late 1940s to study law at the University of Manchester. One of the things that has been mentioned is institutionalised racism, which is, you know, very obvious. Two of the things that I'd like to mention are internalized racism and arrested development. I've just finished my memoir, and these are the two of the big issues that are coming up, you know, that have come up, that I've done extensive research into, looked at the damage that this does. And in terms of the research, if there's somebody that, you know, I can discuss it with afterwards, to look at this, because my late father was called Tunde, and Tunde mentioned about confidence. I'd also talk about self-esteem and internalized racism, and, you know, is one of the things that will just suppress that. He talked about a career plan, etc., that will suppress that. It's also something Isabella talked before about talking about racism in our community. Certainly, as from my experience, internalized racism people are in denial about it, or it's taboo. And, you know, there has been a lot of research done into it, and as I say, it's very damaging, and it's something that I do think we need to address. And if there is somebody in particular that I can talk to about it afterwards, I hope they come and talk to me. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So Kyle, we cut you short a little bit, or you cut yourself short, I think, and didn't say a great deal about the Black Solicitors Network, and I wondered if you could say a bit more.
So hi, my name's Kyle from Black Solicitors Network. BSN was founded over 20 years ago in London, really. I think, as somebody said, at the time there was this feeling that, you know, solicitors needed to get together, black solicitors, because effectively changes were coming in which were going to disproportionately affect black lawyers. So really nobody thought there's a need for this at the time, but they just thought, well, we've got to get together to do some work to say, hey, government, you need to stop these changes. So fast forward to today, we are the largest legal network in the country, as recognised by the Law Society. We have over 7,000 members as of today. I think it was maybe 5 years ago, BSN North was launched. Unfortunately, that faded away after a couple of years. So then last October, we relaunched BSN North with the hope that we could really, again, bring together lawyers within Manchester and in the North under this umbrella group that, again, I think is that it's a cliche, but there is, you know, the strength in numbers that, you know, when we are coming together, we are raising these issues, we are talking about them. BSN isn't exclusive to black solicitors. It's open to, you know, any ethnicity, any race. because our philosophy is that really us just being black lawyers is great, but the challenges that we face can only really be addressed by having, you know, other people in the room. Hopefully, you know, the partners of law firms who do, I think as Tunde said, is that they tend to be, you know, the pale, stale label that they're given. That's who we need to be engaging with. So through the vehicle of BSN, the hope is that we can start to challenge, you know, the law firms. And then looking to, you know, the next generation, we set up Grassroots, which is a program aimed purely at students as a way to bridge the gap from, you know, finishing academia to then transitioning through to life in practice. I think a lot of students who, you know, I speak to, and they seem to have this, you know, rose-tinted view of, you know, I have my law degree now, I've completed the LPC, I've done fantastic. Where's the job? And you know, sadly, they're just not there. Again, what Tunde mentioned in terms of confidence, and if you can come to more events, you know, that we put on, is giving students that exposure to, you know, other solicitors, to partners. It's only once you're in those circles do you actually start to see how they're engaging with one another. And I think, you know, flattery, you know, if you emulate the others, that's sometimes how you've got to get there. So if we put on the events, it's a way of, you know, giving our community, which the reality is we don't have the networks within the law firms. So if we can put on a few events and allow, you know, students and other solicitors to start to see one another, the hope is that that's empowering and everybody then builds up from there. So that's just a short bit about BSN.
So there's a hand at the back, 2 hands at the back, and there's a lady here who's been waiting for a long time to speak.
Question directly to yourself about, is there criteria for those students who are qualified through transition, through the solicitor's training and going through transition to employment? Is there criteria for them joining, and also is there a fee attached to that?
The only criteria is that they're open to learning. We would say, obviously, to the non-black students, again, get involved, because that's what I try to actively encourage. So some say, well, there's a criteria that you have to be black. Well, no, it's not. On the contrary, it's to everybody. In terms of fee, there is a small fee. It's £12 a year. The reality is that, you know, we don't receive any funding. So unfortunately, at this stage, you know, we have to charge a small fee. But for that, we try and make sure that, you know, students are exposed to at least 4 events. So we think, well, you know, for a nominal fee, it's probably good value for money.
Thank you. Well, just one last thing. Do they get the rose-tinted glasses off when they do get involved with yourselves?
Potentially. You probably have a baptism of fire, I think, once you start to enter the legal profession. You know, some people who we speak to, they'll say, we've applied to 30 firms, not heard a thing back. Those glasses have been shattered, you know. Then you start to see, right, we need to take this seriously now. I think, sadly, it's probably, they do become a little bit stale almost. They've been applying and applying and applying. You know, years tick by, and then it's like, what do we do? So for us, our challenge is to engage with, you know, students and people who are looking to enter the profession, is to say, we're here, you know, and that's a challenge in itself. So just being here tonight is fantastic, you know, to see particularly the young men sat just behind you there. So.
Hi. Just want to say I'm proud on so many levels. One, that this initiative is taking flight. Another, because there's another guy on the panel called Tunde. And that's actually my name, Baba Tunde. So yeah, we made it, bro. It's one of those things. You're coming from East London as well. I come from East London, Hackney, Springfield. So yeah, it's just amazing to see another brother there on the panel. But going back to what Patrick mentioned in terms of legal consciousness, legal awareness, and obviously this is a bursary for people with an incentive or the motivation being pushed to go to university or, again, with a plan. But unfortunately, a lot of people are so far gone, so they won't really be able to access this kind of opportunity. And I suppose my question is, I know you mentioned initiatives. You spoke about initiatives with the level of outreach and actually making sure people are aware of this. But again, some of these things won't get through to some of the people that you're trying to actually change a mindset. So what kind of things are we going to be doing with this bursary as an initiative to maybe actually just giving them a level of consciousness about it? Because maybe they can't become black lawyers anymore, but actually just knowing might change a lot of their perceptions. So my question is how and what can we do to actually change some of those perceptions with some of those people that we might see as far gone?
Thank you. So I think that's a great question. And whilst we're waiting, there's microphones there and then it's coming out here. Can I just ask you, all of us, to think about what can we do? There are lots of people in this room, and we all know now, don't we? So what are we going to do? So if you've got some great suggestions for how we can make sure that the information gets out there, then, yeah, let's share them and get the microphone to you.
Okay. My name is Yenkon Hodu, and I'm a professor at the University of Manchester at the School of Law. And I really congratulate Graham and Isabel, and of course, our dear Lemn for this bursary. I think it's a very, very good thing. I think my own background, as you can hear from my accent, I was born in Africa, I was born in Cameroon. My own experience is a bit different from the experience that perhaps many of you would have had here. But I think when I was growing up, one thing that my parents kept on telling me was that if you want to be a giant, you have to hang on the shoulder of giants. And this actually meant that you need to have a hero that you want to emulate. So when I was applying to go and do my postgraduate abroad, which was actually not in this country, which was in Helsinki, I applied to 50 countries, to 50 universities, and I got acceptance in 10 universities. And the first 10, my parents kept on telling me, you must fight. Remember what you've been told. You must have to fight. There are hurdles. The world is not as easy as you think. So you must continue to fight. So the message I just want to pass is that as we are in here listening to this, getting this information about the bursary, I think we should really act as ambassador to go out and spread the message. Inspire our family, inspire our children that they can be anything. We know there are challenges. I mean, there's no profession that doesn't have a challenge. But we should inspire them that they should continue to hope that they can be anything in this country. So that's just this more information I wanted to share with you guys.
Thank you. That's great.
Shall I just answer Tunde's question? Yeah. Sorry. I just wanted to address what you said, Tunde, because I thought it was really interesting, and it's definitely going to be a challenge that we need to overcome and put a lot of work and a lot of effort into, reaching these particular individuals, particular groups who are, quote unquote, hard to reach. And the question of how we do that, is not one that I have an answer for right at this moment. I mean, I can give you an example. I've invited loads of my friends from within my own peer group who are local to this area, who would be classed as being in that hard-to-reach group. Lots of them are musicians, etc. You're one of the only people that's turned up who I invited through my social networks, Tunde. So, I don't have the answer to that solution, but I'm hoping that I can work in collaboration with skilled youth workers. I know there's many in the room, people who have expertise in that area, so that we can, it's not just for people who are already thinking about going to university, it's people who've written themselves off from having any kind of academic achievement. And it's also for people who don't even necessarily want to go to university, but they might want to access, the museums or the archives, or we've got an observatory, Jodrell Bank. There's loads of stuff going on, and this is for everyone. There was a person in attendance last year whose name I won't mention, who made a big hoo-ha about how we're all paying into this university and we don't get anything back from it. Also his words. Well, I suppose the challenge is, let's start getting out of it. You know, let's start participating. Let's start accessing it. Let's start doing that work, and then perhaps as a result of that, we can kind of broaden out the curriculums, broaden out the programming, broaden out the whole perception of the university, so that it isn't seen as like this alien elite thing that's only for a certain type of person, because the university has a lot to offer everyone, not just those who want to study at it.
Thank you as well. So you've been waiting patiently.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, this is to Cal from the BSN. Just wanted to ask, because more recently I have been doing some working in the local community. I see lots of faces that I know around here. But I also do engage with lots of young people. And at the moment, I've met quite a lot of young people that have actually finished their law degrees, are looking for work, and as you've mentioned, may have rose-tinted glasses in the first place. But I just want to ask, because there is a disparity, two parts of this question. So one, have you got anything local? Because more recently, we've just opened up a law society or a law centre, literally on Princess Road. So are you networking with local black communities? And I know you're not just for black communities, but in Toxteth, in Leeds, in Scott Hall, anywhere where there needs to be more awareness of the law and what the law can do for you and what you should know, especially when it comes to young black males that may be arrested. More recently, there's been stuff happening locally where sadly young people have lost their lives. So, are you linking up? Because you're saying that there's not enough linking and networking together, but there are places opening up all over the place. And if they're not, why can't you do more to maybe, get more people on board, get the support that you need? I'm sure there's funding. We all know Brexit's coming, but, before that, what are you doing? Because we have young people that want to get into work in the law, in all kinds of levels, criminality, social justice, all of that. But already, even through this summer, told me that they've applied, they're looking for work, they want to actually work for black firms or work where they can actually do something in the local community, but there's no outlet. So what happens? Because those people are discouraged. I've also talked to elders that have gone through their law degrees, got it years ago, want to do something, and still there's no outlet for them. So where do we go?
The sad reality is resource. I'm really passionate about having, coming here and seeing everybody. There isn't enough hours in the day for us to get everywhere. What we're trying to do at BSN North is, you must remember we're effectively 12 months old next month, actually. So for us, our committee, they are often lawyers, very busy, students. That's not the excuse, and that's not acceptable. What we're saying is that if people want to get involved with BSN, there's only so much a committee can do without others feeding in. So, I write a monthly article in the Gazette, and I'm always saying at the end of it, if you'd like to join BSN, drop me a line. We started grassroots, so we're making links with BPP, University of Manchester, MMU. So we're trying to get out there. I think, and it's the challenge that Isabella was saying, is that accessing for us, it's that of course we would love to be everywhere, but you have to look at it a bit more pragmatically and think, well, we do have a finite amount of time. As we're trying to build BSN North, the hope is that if we can make really strong links as well with law firms, because that's for us is the objective, is that once we've established that foundation, and we could say, we've got 20, top firms in Manchester signed up, then of course we can then go out and start to work with the community more. So I'd pass it back to you and say, how can you get involved with us? Have somebody
give me your information. I will spread it to all these young people, because a lot of them are being disparaged now and don't want to stay in the law. They don't want to.
Really
they don't
sad,
want to work.
isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is, because they're not finding places. You've just said about lots of them, people applying. I do understand that. I was referring to your point because you said you started this before and then, it collapsed. So to have maybe a stronger network, all those young people that are now have left last year and the year before, maybe if you actually put out, through all of our networks and say, look, want to start something on Princess Road at the law firm down here, They can sign up, even do some voluntary work. I know people want to get paid, but they can do something that they're actually actively learning and giving back to the community. So that way, that network always, keeps going round. Yeah.
Well, you've got the information now. I chaired the panel last year when Kyle launched it, and we had a Deputy High Court judge who's a QC who grew up in the community, Winston Hunter. I didn't see many people from the community, I can tell you. It was in the law firm, DWF. So let us be the voices of our communities and tell everybody to apply for the bursaries and join. You've only got to Google BSN North. It ain't hard.
No, that's no, fair enough. I do understand that. I do understand that. But you know what? If we had a poster literally on Princess Road in areas where there are lots of black youth or people that are studying, then we'd have a quicker access, maybe.
So, just to say,
it's just
Yeah, just to say that again, in the run-up to us launching in October, I did a radio interview, Legacy FM, where we were actively saying to people, look, come and get involved. There's a launch, in a week's time or so. Nobody turned up.
So before anybody else, I'm very conscious of the time, so we're supposed to be finishing 4 minutes ago. And I'm really conscious that we've heard from lots of people my age and a bit younger, but we've not heard from some of the younger people among us. So we just really wanted to give them the opportunity to speak. I know. So if any of the young people here would like to speak, we've got a gentleman there with a hat that has been waiting for us to speak for a while. And then I'm going to ask if any of the young people want to speak, and then move on, because we really need... if you've already spoken, then please, let somebody else have a go.
I actually do law myself, but I go to an open university and get a law degree. But I think a great opportunity for us is to open a citizens law firm, which is on a bigger scale. So it work to every nation. If you got 18 nations, it can work in 18 nations. More than put it on a smaller scale.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any of our young people? We've got some people in school uniform. Anybody feeling brave enough?
Here. There's one young man.
Yeah, great.
I'd like to know, because you were talking about how you're trying to get us younger people involved in like law and stuff like that, and how we need like 3 years to get in, and the bar that they've set, but yet you're not doing anything about it to help us. Like, you're not coming to schools to visit us, to try and talk to us about what we need to do to progress and get there, where we need to be. So I'd like to know what you guys are going to do to work towards that.
Okay, so maybe I wasn't that clear. I think I've been sort of mumbling quite a lot. We are planning to come into schools, and the law school does already go into schools, do a number of different interventions. Currently, I work 2 days a week, and I'm coordinating the scheme. So we do have to focus on recruiting people so that we get some people applying to come next year. But you're absolutely right. More needs to be done with your age group. We've actually got Catherine here at the minute. You can see she's got a big, lovely afro over there. She's our widening participation outreach person who's exclusively responsible full-time for going into schools and engaging with pupils and talking about degree courses, helping them to get onto different courses. Catherine's only just started. She's only been in post for a couple of months, but I know she's really passionate about increasing the number of black students at the university. So perhaps someone could pass Catherine a mic, actually, because I know she's got loads of stuff planned for Black History Month. I know she's going into loads of different schools. So I personally might not be doing that much within schools in the next year, but there's lots of other people who are. And, if your school isn't on our list already, it needs to be on there. So, yeah, if have you got a mic there, Catherine? I can't see.
This one.
Just 1 minute.
I'll bring it back.
a good job I don't mind talking, really, isn't it? Yeah, so my name's Catherine, and I'm the Student Recruitment and Widening Participation Coordinator for BAME students. And I think to kind of summarise my job, really, is to target you students there at the front. For me, really, the job is all about going into schools and actually promoting not just the University of Manchester, but university as a whole. And it's not just about going in and saying you need to get these grades. It's about working with you students and saying, okay, what are the barriers that you are facing? What projects can we put together in order to ensure that you can get over those barriers? So one of the projects that we've got running at the moment is we're actually going to be working with future students who want to come and study geography, because at the moment the amount of BME students that study geography, particularly at Manchester, is really, really low. So we're doing a whole research project with a group of year 10s. We're going to provide interventions for the next 2 to 3 years and actually have a look if that increases the amount of BMA students that will actually apply and go to the university. Myself, I've just put a team together of around 6 BME student ambassadors who have gone and actively recruited. So that's current students that have a BME background who are studying various courses, who I've said, come with me and we'll go into schools and we'll talk about Black History during Black History Month. And that's just not about talking about Black History Month. It's also about inspiring young people like yourselves at the front to say, yeah, there's a role model there. That's someone who's like me and they're actually studying at Manchester and they're actually talking about a topic that I can relate to. We're doing work in primary schools where we're going to be doing a roadshow with around 40 schools in Manchester where we're taking all the diverse literature off the shelves of the Race Relations Resource Centre and we're putting it in teachers' hands and saying, let's diversify your curriculum. Let's allow for young children to see themselves in children's books. And that's myself and a massive team of people from Central Library, from the Students' Union, who are all coming together. So I think for me, like, there is a lot of outreach work going on there. I'm just one of a team of around 40 people that are doing loads of things, but obviously in particular with my job role, mine's targeted at working with BAME students. So if there are any people in the room, in particular who work in schools with particular youth groups, if you want to get involved, if you want me to come out there and speak to those students, because the university have actually employed me and given someone a platform from our backgrounds to actually go in and say the University of Manchester is a choice. So kind of back to you guys, really. So if you want us to come in, it's about, you know, knocking on the door as well and saying, here we are, come and speak to us.
Great, thank you. So I'm very mindful of the time, and we want to hear.
Can I just ask?
Yeah, you're going to ask a question.
What school are you at? What's your school?
Oasis, is it? Yeah.
Oasis Academy. Thanks a lot.
Okay,
Thanks for
great.
being here.
Thank you. So I'm just going to start at that end of the panel, and so if anybody had any last words. We want to spend a bit of time before they throw us out at the end for people to network. I know that there are people who want to ask specific questions of particular individuals, so we want to give you that opportunity and to look at the stands and to gather information, talk to Catherine and so on. So if we start at that end and just say any last words, and then we will end with Lem and saying his poem. That's all right.
I wasn't prepared, actually, for this, but I suppose my last words are, I speak in state schools. If I have not been to your school, I'm a black female barrister. Write to me, and I'll come to your school. And secondly, let's aim higher. Careers teachers, tell your students they can aim even higher than being criminal barrister or whatever. I want to see young black people becoming solicitors and barristers in commercial law and making some real money, because then we can have some more power.
So I'll just start by saying I'm going to create an evaluation form and put it on the Black Lawyers Matter webpage. So if you could sort of tomorrow or Friday take a look at that page and give us some feedback, or you can just email me at Black Lawyers Matter. We'd really appreciate some feedback on the event tonight and on the bursary and on everything, and be as harsh as you want. We want to hear all of it. I suppose in terms of my closing remarks, we did actually bill on the flyer that we're going to be having another discussion around youth violence within the local area and how we can work together with lawyers to address that. I'm conscious that we've kind of overrun and we've not really had time to address that. I don't want it to appear that that's because it's not important, because it really, really is. It's something I'm very, very passionate about. So I'd like to suggest at this point that we reschedule that particular meeting, possibly for November or something like that. So it's not that we've just forgotten about it. Just didn't quite expect this part of the event to go on for so long. But thank you everyone for coming. Thank you for all the support that we've had. Thank you for all of your questions, especially the difficult ones. Thank you to that young man there who asked the last one. Well done. And I also want to single out Dwayne here at the front. He might not like this. He's shaking his head, but I'm going to do it anyway. He's just been accepted onto a law conversion course, so as a, you know, I've helped him a little bit with his application and stuff like that. So I just want to do a round of applause for Dwayne. He's our first black lawyer on the programme. There we go. And then just a big thank you to everyone on the panel for supporting me and supporting this project. Thank you very much.
I think my closing remarks are, again, it's just coming together like this is great. I think just going back to Tunde's question, I think just quickly, is that it's never too late to become a lawyer. You know, if you can't get into University of Manchester, there are other options. You know, don't just think I've got to study law to become a lawyer. You can do paralegaling. Just get in there, you know, get some experience. I think that's the key, particularly to the young men there. The other thing I'd say is that, you know, set something up on your own, you know, form a society within college or wherever you are. If we can't get to you, if somebody else can't get to you, make it happen. You know, I think as Sally says, contact her or go out there and start it. BSN started only 20 years ago. You know, that's really is just go out there and be bold and confident. So.
Three remarks. The first is thank you very much again, all of you, for being here. The second is please let this be the start and not the end.
Yes, sir.
And again, I'll repeat that. Please let this be the start and not the end. And the final remark, just dealing with that point of confidence that I spoke about earlier, be very careful and don't allow the opinions, views, or thoughts of others to define your reality. That's it.
Thank you. So I just want to say thank you, as Isabel echoing Isabella's thanks for coming out. I know there are lots of other things that you could be doing this evening, so I really appreciate you taking the time. And the conversation continues. So Isabella is saying that, you know, there's on the Black Lawyers website, there's an evaluation form. Please use the opportunity to share your views, your opinions. There's a contact, you know, there's contact through that website, so you can get in touch with people. So we do want to hear from you. We genuinely want to. And I just want to also just to thank the parents who've come tonight, but also the teachers who've given up their evenings to bring young people. Yeah. We really, really appreciate that. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and all the speakers and everybody that's contributed to this project along the way. It's 15, 16 months since the launch. And really, when this was set up, and I've mentioned Charles having been right at the forefront of that, Ornette, and Tunde right at the beginning as well, we were quite clear that we were trying to seek a coalition for change, that this is a problem that the university cannot address on its own. And I think this meeting today has really supported that, and I can only see it really going from strength to strength, where the university, the School of Law, is a partner, among others. Black Solicitors Network Kyle and I have been meeting regularly the last couple of months, and I think it's that really. It's about drawing in the schools, and it's about community organisations working together to address what is a problem much bigger than the problem that just the university is seeking to address. So it's thank you to all of you for coming today.
Okay. I'd like to just add my thanks to everybody in closing. I've increased my knowledge over the course of the last hour. I think a lot of the interventions have been really, really good. In closing, I'd like to kind of raise a bigger question about how do we make this university, well, both universities in Manchester, how do we make them more relevant to the issues that affect our community? And I think the young man asked a really, really good question about coming out and engaging with the young people. But I think that there's another side of that, and that is about the university responding in kind and looking at how can the university design programs that speak directly, particularly in the School of Law, to the issues that exist within the criminal justice system. Because I don't think that many of the programs are relevant enough and speak directly enough to the issues of race in the criminal justice system.
Before we go on to Lemn, sorry, just to butt in, I've kind of realised that we should have put a leaflet about the bursary on every chair, and we didn't.
Okay.
So there's loads of them over there. I'd really like every single person to take at least one. It tells you all about how to apply, the eligibility criteria, etc., and then just spread them out, you know, amongst your network. So please do go over to that table there, and just there's loads of stuff. Just go and grab one of everything, or more than one. Thank you.
Okay, and whilst you're grabbing those, there's some flyers here about a screening of a movie, Say I'm Innocent, of an event, and it's the screening of Fallout and a panel discussion. So some of us are old enough to remember the Birmingham Six being wrongfully convicted, and so it's a story around that. And that's on the 3rd of October, 5:30 at the University of Manchester. So you can pick up the information about that. There's some posters here about the Black Child Agenda, tackling the school to prison pipeline, and that's an event that's on the 7th of October at the Hough End Centre, but there are posters and flyers about that. I think Kyle wanted to say one more thing, and then...
Just whilst we're on the topic of events, on the 25th of October, we're hosting an event at Freshfield Solicitors in Salford. We're hoping for about 100 plus people, so we'd love for you to, get involved, particularly the students there, so yeah, 25th of October.
Okay. And we've saved the best to last.
Well, I don't know
and
about
finally.
There is a point to read, but I just did want to say that when I was 17, I used to get stopped by the police once every couple of weeks in my car when I got a car. If a few black guys got together, we went from here into town, we wouldn't be allowed into clubs. If I get a house that's not in an area where there are lots of other black people, people start to ask questions as to what I'm doing there. All kinds of strange things happen. The question is are those things happening in my head? Am I just crazy, or are they happening for real? Because in my life, they happened for real. The only law case that I took was against a record company who ripped me off. My own manager didn't do the right thing, and I found a black music lawyer in Manchester. Showed him the evidence that I'd written the lyrics of that track, which was a Platinum Award-winning worldwide hit, and he got it for me. Now, I went to a black lawyer because everybody else in that equation, and by the way, including the people who changed my name as a child, who stole me from my parents, of which I'm taking people to court at the moment, just want to say this, is that, and this isn't I've got to say it though, because every person who did this in this equation was white and of a rule male. We need black lawyers. We need somebody who you can speak to and not feel like you're going a bit crazy. Right. And that is not to take away from any other culture. Yes, but that's what happened to me in real life. And so to have another black lawyer who I can speak to about the fact that the police did stop me about once every 2 weeks throughout my 20s. By the way, I did speak about it on the BBC, but that's not good enough. I want legal representation, somebody to understand me. I may not win the case, but somebody thinks I'm not crazy. And that's really important to me, and that's why we need black lawyers. Also, I've got to say that when I was being stopped in my car, it had nothing to do with the fact that I was going up the M6 the wrong way with a pint of Red Stripe in my hands. That was a joke. Please, guys, that was just a joke. No, the fact is I was stopped. Just for anybody who's... Sorry, I've just got to clear this up. I was stopped that many times, and it still happens. And he knows, of course he does. Why is it that when just you're on the edge of adulthood, doing the things that any other adult would do, buying a car, going to clubs, wanting to buy a house, wanting to show off, wanting to look good, dress well, why is it that all of those things, all of those gates to adulthood is where we get stopped? We want somebody who can understand that emotionally and who can then legally represent us in those situations, because we are not crazy. Pardon? Oh, shall I do it? Oh, yeah, I'll do it. Thank you for that. I was asked to read a poem, and I've said what I said then. By the way, the lawyer who's representing me, which will be issuing proceedings as of in 2 weeks' time, is white. And he's incredible. But I want the option. At a certain time in my development, I want the option. Does that make sense? Yes, sir. Yeah. When my anger sometimes can't properly articulate myself, I want somebody who can understand that. I want the option. Yes, sir. Making a difference. We are shaking and breaking and quaking waking in difference. We're quaking and taking and making a difference. We're working, observing, recording, researching. We're conferring, subverting, referring. We're counting the minutes, the moments, the loss. Redressing the balance, addressing the cost. We're citing and fighting. It's all in the writing. The spark is igniting. In dark we are lightning. We're breaking the brackets, the factors, the planets in rackets and rackets of rackets in brackets. The systems, the victims, the damning, the scanning, the bias, predicting, the beating and banning. To relentless censors, the damned and defendless. Our words are the action, the louder reaction. We teach through closed doors. Where none listen, we hear. When heads turn away, we volunteer. We count cells in illness. We name the unnamed. We count the invisible. We make change. We work. We stand tall. We rise up to be counted. We work above all. We climb mountains. The skills we exchange. The breaking of change. The action sustained. The making of change. We're shaking and breaking and waking in difference. Yes, thanks. Thank you.